The first time I watched Elfen Lied, it was under a recommendation of a friend. I was certainly intrigued and curious of the world surrounded by Lucy, and the first episode established a tone that I expect from the rest of the show. I like the contrast between the different Diclonius and Psyche behind their vast personalities and hidden past. But after watching a couple reviews and rewatching Elfen Lied for a second time, my initial thoughts changed dramatically. I painfully succumbed to the realization that I misguided my initial opinions of the series were from the first viewing. So the first 9 minutes of Elfen Lied are a curious spectacle indeed. You have a naked girl breaking free of confinement in a large research lab. Naturally, waves of armed security guards try to stop her, but unfortunately they are ripped into pieces in a very non-cutesy way. They're either decapitated, dismembered, limb from limb, or sometimes even explode into big, large crimson fountains. As the girl silently walks through this facility, the carnage continues and the corpses pile up. You even got scenes where one guy loses his heart, and at another point you have a ditzy secretary carrying a tray and stumbles and falls in front of the mass murderer. For the ditzy blunder, she ends up getting decapitated, and then her headless body is used as a bullet shield. Elfen Lied overall does well in the violence department, but really the rest of Elfen Lied sucks. The story is crap, and it tries to be morally ambiguous, trying to make us wonder who the real bad guy is here, and it fails to. If those responsible were trying to set up Lucy as a psychopathic villain, they did it all wrong. I never got the impression that she was anything more than a cruel mass murderer. Yes, there are flashbacks later on that shows her as a little orphan girl who befriends Kouta, and between scenes where she gets excited over giraffes and having play fights in the water, but she's really for the most part busy slaughtering half the town with no mercy. It's not really a good example of a dynamic character in my opinion. Then there are many plot threads that go absolutely nowhere, and the setups are a complete non-payoff. After Bando, who happens to be this delusional soldier who wants nothing but to kill people, is surgically augmented with super-powered robot hands and swears vengeance on Lucy after getting his ass whooped from her, you'd think he'd be an interesting, albeit silly guy. Instead, all he does is stand around on the bench like a grumpy loser for the remainder of the series. The evil director of the evil research lab wants to use Diclonius to take over the human race, but we never get to see him do anything to set this up into motion, and Yuka totally wants Kyoto's familiar rod, and is jealous from the attention that Nayu's gets from Kouta. And again, nothing comes from it. Kouta himself really does nothing interesting as a character at all until the last couple episodes, and his character is just a total bore. The ending was even worse for me. It infuriated me for not even being an ending at all, and it was even more of a disappointment when I didn't even notice it the first time, because I swam through a sea of blood to get to episode 13 again, and only that defined that the last few minutes was the biggest letdown of a non-ending in my recent memory. According to articles, the anime apparently stopped before the source manga could finish, and it was a completely original ending that was engineered. And if you mean by ending, you must mean by setting up a bunch of cliffhangers as if an imaginary second season would ever fucking happen. Yes, then I guess that may be the case because it wanted me to throw something at my TV. Anyways, I found that the Nayu/Lucy dynamic was done very poorly, since there was real conflict between the two sides. Although I liked Lucy's character probably the best in the entire series, she never had any real screen time until the last couple episodes where Nayu conveniently disappears. Maybe that's also why I enjoyed the ending, because essentially Nayu was just a flat character. The good/bad thing wouldn't have fallen flat on its face if they didn't develop her more as a character. And now when I think about it, her existence seems relatively pointless, since the only real plot purpose that she has is just to prevent Lucy from waking up and apologizing to Kouta earlier on in the series, thus giving away the entire ending. She is also there for the fan service/romantic comedy crap that I don't believe I have to get into. I never really felt that Nayu was treated as a real serious character. Perhaps she would have had more depth if she existed beforehand and wasn't created so randomly. So let's focus on our other main character, Kouta, who is basically average in general. He moves to Enoshima, the setting of the story, to study college and love his cousin, who apparently has to be in love with him. You know what? Screw this. He later moves on to this large house or traditional Japanese restaurant, which makes it his base of the Harmon operations, with him ordering women along the story, with women such as a homosexually abused kid, a loony horn who has a papa fetish, our psychopathic split personality Lucy, and my favorite, we are totally not related by blood, cousin. Oh, and I also forgot to mention, our main character also has selective amnesia because of her traumatic experience, which plays on later on in the series, so that's just great. So, to sum it all up, we have a cast of loose, mentally hinged characters all under one roof. As far as the animation goes, the art seemed to have faded as the show progressed. It seemed very generic and bland when it needed to be, and vibrantly savage when it wants. Elfen Lied's style almost lacks the most identity of its own story. Most people have probably heard the phrase style over substance at least once in their life, and Elfen lied rather it being very little style and what substance. The quality animation involving anything that isn't brutatious violence or breast really highlights what the creators thought were really important for its story and its animation. The sound can usually save an anime from being a complete disaster, but alas, Elfen lied couldn't fulfill in this department either. The voices of the MCs in both English and Japanese were so plain and dull, they almost had this let's just get this over with type of tone. They didn't even have the appropriate emotions for certain scenes, and it made it really hard to follow, such as in the most drastic and sad situations, a character gracefully recites his or her lines while holding a smile on his or her face. A scene will also show them choking up or sobbing, and all they say are their lines in a very emotionless tone. But I will say this, I was entrapped by the theme song. It can be interrupted in some sort of way and set the tone for an innocent bloodbath. You could almost forgive their actions with this song. Sadly, nothing else can really be done with the soundtrack since it comes close to creating any sort of feeling for the situations in the series, which may be linked to possibly the poor plot and characters. Now here comes to my biggest issue I have with this anime, and it is the literal use of fan service. The nudity is absurd. Literally within 10 seconds of the intro, you've already seen the main character butt-ass naked, and within 10 minutes of the first episode, you get even more of the same. Actually, this seems to be true for every episode that I've seen, regardless more than just the protagonist alone. Some poor fools would argue that this nudity is a manifestation of childlike innocence or purity of the given characters whenever it is shown. However, I object to that conclusion because this is so overdone by the 100th time it is shown. It happens to lose all meaning in general. For that matter, the central theme of innocence and discrimination is entirely conveyed through the first episode, and it is pointless to watch this beyond if you're only doing it for the philosophy of fanboys or fangirls that have convinced you with lies under the surface. Go watch Grave of the Fireflies, which is everything Elfen lied wishes it was. More or less, ironically, it is a lot less in a runtime. And that is sad to say. Now moving on to my final verdict. While Elfen lied is really hard to judge given its popularity, and if you want to say it's certainly a unique work of art, so be it. But for me, it doesn't even come close. Despite trying to be deep, Elfen lied fails horribly by only touching on its themes very carelessly, hence lacking any message at the end of the day. It transforms itself into the generic harem, and it uses seemingly clever tricks to fool the audience to thinking that there's something mature here. But at the end of the day, it's nothing more than a mindless harem. Also, a useless incest romance subplot that goes nowhere, and why is this such a big thing in Japan? But above all else, the characters lack personality and depth, the art and music is nothing that is really spectacular at all, and it tries to, I guess, make it up for its flaws by the help of the conveniences, the cliches, the mindless gore, and nudity, but it only worsens the show in my opinion. This show might appeal to gore fans, incest lunatics, and maybe mindless harem lovers, but unfortunately, I am none of those people. So as far as a recommendation goes, I can't recommend this anime. It's skippable, to be honest. And if you are curious, then I'll say this. Give it a try. I'll give the yellow light of caution because I don't think it is an anime I'll ever rewatch ever again. Well anyways, this wraps up my review / rant on Elfen lied. If you guys did enjoy this, of course hit that like button, it's always widely appreciated. As well, comment down below, do you guys agree with my viewpoints on why my own opinions value that this anime is not that great as an anime? Or do you guys disagree with me? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Comment down below, let me know, I want to see what you guys have to say. I'll see you guys next time on my next anime related video. Peace guys.